Hello, everyone. My name is Brad Laporte, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Morphisec. And today we're going to be going through our monthly demo. And just a little bit of background on me. Previously, I was an officer in the U.S. Army, and then also led the really the endpoint security portfolio at Dell SecureWorks and IBM, and was a top-rated analyst at Gartner, and been working with Morphisec for the better half of the past 2 years. With me, I have Darren Nolan, our very important person of the day, and he's a senior security sales engineer. Darren, you want to tell a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, sure. I've been here at Morphisec about 5 years. I've been doing cybersecurity for pushing 30 now. I think we didn't call it cybersecurity back then, but worked at various startups. I did consulting work. I also worked in-house at organizations. So I kind of got a roundabout portfolio. Been there, done that. One thing I've learned is the more you know you don't know.
Yeah, and it's always a continuous improvement process as you navigate through that, which is primarily why we set up this monthly demo, to try and bring people up to speed on current events and what's happening within the market, as well as really showing what we have to offer in a really refined setting. And one of the things to understand is ransomware is rapidly evolving. It still surprises me sometimes when I'm meeting with CISOs and top executives that they don't know that ransomware is still the top issue. I mean, this is a top topic that Gartner and Forrester and other market leaders and top evangelists are talking about in terms of this being a major issue. And really, attackers are using more AI-driven campaigns and leveraging traditional methods on top of these new tools like ransomware as a service. And basically, this has now become over a $10 trillion market for them and ecosystem. And reactive security tools are ultimately failing, primarily because these detection tools are they're too late. They're leaving gaps in the attack surface, and they're allowing attackers to exploit and really take advantage of the amount of time that it takes to that mean time to detect and the mean time to respond. So everything is shifting towards a more preemptive state, and it's really overwhelming security teams. There's a lot of alert fatigue, tool fatigue, false positives, having limited resources and budgets, really leaving teams exposed, especially as they try to manage these threats effectively. And now endpoint vulnerabilities are really becoming an issue. I mean, we just saw a major 0 day with Microsoft SharePoint that's wreaking havoc. There's a lot of things that are happening across distributed systems, remote workforces, and really targeting legacy software as well as new software, and identifying those weak holes and finding ways through the back door. Last but not least, the high cost of ransomware recovery tools, are average. Those recovery costs that we have for ransomware attacks are roughly anywhere from 1 to 5 million, with 1.85 million per incident. Being a real issue with financial losses, downtime, and reputational damage. So a lot of core issues, and how we've gone about this is we've effectively built a suite around this core problem and solving it holistically and stopping ransomware not only at its root but throughout the entire blast radius, and it's part of that attack. So looking at things across pre-execution, during execution, and also post-execution. So we have a defense against the threats up front. We have real-time threat neutralization and being able to disrupt that attack in flight, while having the recovery and forensic support throughout as well to get back to a clean state in a continuous and adaptive fashion. And the way that we do that is we kind of break it down by the ransomware chain. So during the pre-execution phase, we're monitoring security gaps, we're detecting those vulnerabilities and misconfigurations, and we're really looking into the hygiene component. We're looking at out-of-date systems and legacy software and all those different weak points, and being able to prevent those elements, as well as credential theft attempts and account takeovers. And during the execution process, we're also looking across the recon and lateral movement piece and being able to disrupt those living off the land attacks and being able to stop that privilege escalation, trying to disrupt the kind of attacker's ability to obfuscate and use those tools in those methods to move laterally. Being able to prevent tampering and being able to mitigate and provide a safety net and fortify your endpoints to avoid bypass as well as exfiltration. So being able to block data from exfiltrating and preventing data destruction, and as well as the deployment phase. And in the rare cases that it ever even gets past any of those initial phases, we're able to do adaptive recovery and avoiding that extortion phase and being able to recover encryption keys as well as being able to restore hidden recovery points and effectively getting you back to a cleaner state. The as part of this, really we're blocking that evasive ransomware and those AI-driven type attacks. And we do this through our patented method of automated moving target defense. And think of this like an ever-changing maze where we're using, asymmetric uncertainty to deter, disrupt, and stop cyber threats using our own methodologies to morph that attack surface and implement decoys, which we'll be going through in this demo. And as we go through, we're making this maze more and more complicated. And we're using that randomization, we're using those different deception type techniques and decoys, and being able to make it more and more difficult for attackers to enter into that. So, Darren, you're the expert. I'd love you to walk us through kind of the approach and really how this technology works under the hood.
Yeah, and one of the questions that we get a lot is how do we work, right? And how do we coexist with the EDR? And I think it's important to highlight that we function very differently than an EDR. While EDRs are focused mostly on hooking into the application to map it to knowns that they've identified as being malicious, suspicious, Morphisec works fundamentally different. On an endpoint or server, whenever an application is launched by the user or even by the operating system, that's when the Windows loader steps in. You want to hit next, Brad?
Mm-hmm.
And the Windows loader's purpose is to build up that memory bubble where that application is going to reside. It's going to load up the DLLs, the library function calls, and whatnot, and it creates a static bubble. And what I mean by that is that static bubble is the same for everyone. So adversaries know what DLLs are in use. They might know a specific memory offset, and they can use that to their advantage. So what we're doing here at Morphisec is we're stepping into the tail end of that Windows loader process. Do you want to hit next?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we're stepping in after the loader is done, completed building up that bubble, we're essentially renaming and remapping everything. So a.dll might get renamed to 99.dll. Function call XYZ might now become K9A. And we're also changing up the load order. And this is polymorphic in nature. So even if I was just shut down that given application and open it back up, it's always going to be different. So no two hosts are any the same. That makes it very challenging, if not impossible, for AI to actually try to target these because it's never going to be the same. Once we're done, we're also dropping decoy files of that original structure. Do you want to hit next, Brad?
Mm-hmm.
And it's these decoys that the adversaries will trip on. They're still going to try to make that resource call. They're still going to try to do up that memory offset, but nothing is the same. You want to hit next? So when that adversary does try to come in to try to call up that resource, he essentially is going to land on one of our traps, which is essentially immediately kills the process, gathers up valuable forensic data, and then sends it up to the console. But we don't stop there, right? This is all about stopping that adversary from getting on the endpoint to begin with. Now, when we're talking about ransomware prevention, you got to think about different stages. Whenever we generate an event, you know you're dealing with something more advanced and evasive. Do you want to hit next? We're also preventing things like credential harvesting, from preventing them from grabbing the credential vault. We're also stopping things like LSAS dumps. All these, all typically indicators of an insider threat or somebody who's trying to escalate their privileges. Want to hit next? And then one of the other things that are typically precursors to a ransomware attack is data exfiltration. One of the things we're doing is actually preventing that. Do you want to hit next? And here essentially killing off any data that's attempting to be exfiltrated out. But as a last step, a last resort, when I hit next, we're also dropping decoy files scattered throughout the host. They're random JPEG, Office documents. It could be common delimited files. They're everywhere, renamed different things, literally polymorphic in nature. What this results in is if an adversary does manage to try to launch an encryption attack, which we're going to be demonstrating shortly, when I hit next, they're immediately going to stumble upon our decoy files. And at that moment, we can immediately kill that process, mitigating the damage dramatically. And then we can also talk about data recovery. We have that ability of actually intercepting that encryption attempt, grabbing the keys to assist in the recovery of any files that might have been encrypted, if that might have been the case. So we are mitigating and limiting how bad of an impact it is. You might have 3 or 4 files, and that's really about it. But again, we have the ability of actually recovering from it. That's
I appreciate that very thorough deep dive into what we do. And just to kind of package this up, I mean, the way that our platform works as part of the anti-ransomware assurance suite is we're constantly looking at this from the adaptive exposure management piece. We have the infiltration prevention protection. We have impact protection, adaptive recovery, all working in unison. And we're looking at each of these different components. So we're constantly looking at the attack surface. We're protecting it at the earlier blast radius piece. We're doing the impact protection, adaptive recovery, and it's all constantly continuous across the board and working alongside other tools that are in the environment. So kind of fortifying endpoint security tools like EDR across behavioral detection, encryption, protection, data recovery, early execution, and hunting and response, and having it be that safety net in the event that those tools are being bypassed or things that are being tampered with or not able to basically be a strong suit against these really evasive types of attacks. So what we like to do is kind of spend the rest of the time going through and basically showing you this and going through some examples, some of the nasty ransomware variants that we have out there. So Darren, I'll pass the mic back to you, and we'll get the show on the road.
sure. There we go. You see my desktop here?
Yes, sir. Looking good.
So, I mean, like, endpoint solutions are doing their job, and unfortunately, we still have that human error, which is why I kind of like got this, because it's really representative of what you hear a lot about. Users just going about their day, and frequently they're targeted. This might be where they're doing some advanced attack research on a user, trying to find out who they work with, and they might send them a phishing email link, like this one here. Now, in this case, it's actually a spoofed domain where we got a user that's an attacker that's actually spoofed up a domain very similar to who they normally work with. If you look, this one's GT, this one's GL, letting them know about a patch that they need to apply to. So when they go to click on it, again, these delivery methods could vary, even from like a water fishing hole attack, but this one was targeted, and they're giving them specific instructions on what they need to do. And again, they're being told that it's critical. So they'll go up here and execute it just as they're being told by their vendor that's telling them that there's a critical patch. Now, in this stage, when I clicked on that link, what it's going to be doing is actually going out to my command and control server to download a package. And that secondary payload that it goes to download is actually being downloaded and executed in memory. It never lands on the endpoint. And I used a bunch of various evasive techniques in order to bypass the EDR, which a lot of adversaries do. And again, if the EDRs have never seen it before, never classified it, they're completely been blind to it. Now here you can see that secondary payload was grabbed, right? And adversaries are constantly finding new ways around it. Now, as soon as that secondary payload is executed and the session is established, there we go. I can get in, and you can see here that oh, sorry. I can see the privilege that I have the exact same privileges as the user that I'm on. But from here, I could do things like executing Notepad. Right, even capturing keystrokes. Once this is done, I can say Morphisec rocks. All right, just to demonstrate that I have all right. Now from here, now that we've demonstrated we have a good amount of initial access, typically an adversary is going to do that privilege escalation, trying to escalate his privilege, push laterally, get as deep into the network before he actually do the ransomware attack, right? And the first thing that we talked about that they might try to do is try to exfiltrate the data. So what I'm going to do here is try to exfiltrate some data up to my mega drive that I have set up here. And you're going to see that I can actually exfiltrate the data. And what this is actually doing is exfiltrating all the data that I've identified, and specifically is targeting the finance doc. And then here you can see the new folder that's been created with the new exfiltrated data, right? This is typically what they refer to as double extortion, where the adversaries, once they try to do the encryption, I'm going to use the Cicada one, or the Babook one, I should say, right? Now I built this out a little bit differently, but again, it's all about trying to lure the user into executing it. I could even remotely uploaded it, being more silent and stealthy. And this is a variant of the Babook ransomware, where it's immediately going to try to do some more advanced techniques in order to evade the EDR detection before it actually does the ransomware attack. So this is why it's actually taking a minute or about a minute or so before we'll see the files being encrypted. And typically, once they are encrypted, you're going to get a landing page or a message or a file that you can open up, giving you the instructions on how to pay and what the expectations might be. But we can see all the files did get infected here, right? Like all the text are basically all encrypted now. Now, what I'm going to do here is roll the image back to its original state. And we're going to then install Morphisec. So keep in mind, this endpoint was just protected by a next-gen EDR tool. And now we're going to layer Morphisec on top of it and do the exact same attacks that we just walked through to demonstrate the prevention. And then at the same time, we'll also go back in here. So install takes about maybe a minute to 2 minutes. It's a small 8 meg agent, so we can pretty much work with any of the endpoint, deployment solutions out there. And once it's installed, the nice thing about Morphisec is it does not require any type of reboot. It immediately goes to work. We can coexist with any of the EDR tools out there. We do two totally different things. And as we go through the console, you'll see how we can actually enrich your EDR. So right now we got Morphisec installed. And we're going to do the exact same attack scenario, right? Where I'm going to try to click on that link. Now the same thing is still going to occur. It's going to redirect me to that page, instructing me to do that task, right? And if I go back to my attack bypass server, you're going to see it down here, still try to grab that secondary payload. Again, keep in mind that this is actually where the magic happens in that attack scenario. And when it tries to grab that secondary payload and trying to execute it, a little bit more advanced techniques, that's where we're going to kill it. I'm going to shut this down, bring this down. You can see here, Morphisec picked it up and killed that process before it even got to that stage, right? So again, think about being able to stop that adversary at early stages of that attack chain. If I was to try to do the data exfiltration, the same thing. It's going to attempt to copy them over to the folder before it tries to upload them. And as soon as that tries to happen, where it tries to upload it to the folder, that's when we kill that process. Okay. Now, hypothetically, let's say if they still managed to get on the endpoint and they still decided to go for that attack scenario, where they're trying to roll out that ransomware. That was the Babook ransomware. Now, this is one where, if you recall, it first tries to do something more advanced and evasive in order to bypass the EDR and evade it. But before it even gets to that stage, that's where we're going to kill it. So in some of the other ransomware samples we have, we might be killing it at the stage where it's trying to we'll hit our decoy files, but in this one, it's actually doing something a little bit more advanced and evasive before it even gets to that stage. There you go. Killed that process before it even got to the stage of actually encrypting the files. So from here, we can even go back, show that there's no additional new folders, indicating that no data was exfiltrated. But let's go over to our console. So within our console, we have two different dashboards. One of them summarizing all of our attack posture with regards to incidents, or with regards to the additional data that we collect from adaptive exposure management. But we also have a dashboard that highlights the incident data with regards to Morphisec incidents. Now, if I went over here to my incident dashboard, I can actually see a summarized information of all the incidents that did occur. And we can see the different ones that we did stop just recently, right? Here's the first one that we prevented just a second ago. This was the one that actually tried to do something a little bit more advanced and evasive. We can see where it originated from when we clicked on the Outlook link that opened up a Chrome browser that then led to a W script. And again, this is giving you some summary data. On the far right, we give you some mappings back to MITRE, but it's all about giving you that insights, everything from the process IDs that might lead you to correlate it back to your EDR platform. But within our that one small 8 meg agent, we're doing a lot more than just that. We're also, for example, gathering the summary information of all the software deployed on the endpoints and servers, identifying any browser extensions that have been seen on the host. And with it, even being able to define security controls that allows us to set a policy to ensure that your security tools have been properly deployed and running. And from it, even being able to identify other additional tools that might not have been identified or seen in the host. And then giving you a summary of all the identified vulnerability hosts, not just giving you the CVE information, but also giving you the probability, the likelihood that these are actually going to be exploited. And because of where we sit, being able to identify whether or not the applications are actually in use. Now, this is my demo lab, so I'm not going to see none, but being able to understand that and add that to my risk score to see, is it in use or not, is very helpful and insightful. And at any time, you can also search for any of the CVEs that you might be concerned with, ones that we've identified within your environment. And we do have a fully integrated API to allow for integration with other tools, as well as any type of automation process. How about if we stop there and start on the questions?
Yeah, there's one that came in here. Does address space randomization and renaming play nice with dynamically loaded binaries? So
Yes, we
yeah,
do.
yeah,
So
I mean, Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so we've been doing this now for 10 years, and we've gone through the battle trenches and we've seen it all. But yes, we do play nicely with those scenarios.
Um, Another one that came in was, how does Morphisec automated moving target defense technology differ from traditional EDR solutions in terms of identifying and preventing zero-day attacks specifically? And it kind of goes on a little bit. There's another one in here, so I'll kind of combine them together. Part two is, can you elaborate on how Morphisec handles advanced memory only attacks that don't leave a footprint in the endpoint? So 0 days and then not leaving a footprint on the endpoint.
Yeah, we get those kind of questions a lot because a lot of people, look at their EDR and they believe that they have protection against these more advanced evasive attacks. And again, they do a great job once it's known, but for something truly unknown that it's never seen before, they've never mapped it up to identify it as being malicious or suspicious. Their way of actually identifying it is through what I like to refer to as application hooking, meaning whenever an application launches, post-execution, they're hooking into it in order to correlate it back to that, and then mapping it up and throwing it up to the cloud to say, inquire, is it malicious or not? The way we operate is fundamentally different. We coexist with that EDR being that true last layer defense. With us, when an application is launched, it's at that stage that we're stepping in to alter up that structure, changing up the resources, renaming them, as well as changing up the load order, and dynamically and polymorphically, meaning that no two hosts are alike. So when the adversary is coming in to try to do something, he managed to bypass the EDR, and we see evidence of it happening quite a bit these days. They can't find the resources that they're looking to exploit. It might be a specific DLL they're trying to call up, right? Or it might be, for example, let's actually go back to that incident data. We'll actually give you kind of like a highlight of it. Right, so here's one here. This was, if I go to open up the threat logs and try to show it, it's very different on how we're doing that. So for us in this attack scenario that we demonstrated, it's right up here. Whenever, like when you go up to the stack trace, you can actually see that the attacker actually tried to make this library function call within kernel 32. This technically was the decoy that they tripped on, where we killed the process. We don't care if it's digitally signed, who it was opened by. We don't care the process or anything like that. If it does something a little bit different, because everything local on the endpoint would have been aware of that change. It's only outside resources that would not have been aware of it. Next question, Brad.
Yeah, for sure. It's actually been a couple that came in here. What's the typical deployment process for Morphisec at a large scale enterprise environment? And how does it integrate with existing tools like EDRs?
Yeah, great question. From a deployment perspective, it's again very small, lightweight. With an 8 meg agent, we can pretty much be rolled out with any type of solution out there. I've even seen some customers roll it out in a zip file and sent it out via email. I've seen other customers roll it out through integrations with Intune. Whatever you might have, we can work along with it. Now, for the EDR, some of the EDRs might have to add an exclusion because they do see what we're doing as being malicious, but that's an easy step that our support team can actually help you on that initial rollout. But it's literally just excluding our folders and telling that EDR to play nicely with us.
Yeah, and then there's another specific adjacent question that's very similar. So what kind of performance impact is there on the application at startup time? And then for something like a high volume web or CGI style application, is it negligible or not? And the answer is, obviously negligible.
Very negligible, right? So my favorite use case was a situation where I rolled it out on a Windows 7 host with 4 gigs RAM. We didn't even impact it. So for us, we're making all the changes at load time, not run time. Once we're done, we step away and return those resources back to the endpoint.
Mhm. All right. I mean, we got another question in here we can go through. Just for the sake of time, is there any other things that you want to walk through in the demo environment, or
No,
you I think we're good to go on that side? I just want to make sure before we go
no,
to the next question.
I think we're good. Did we already reviewed a
We
lot of
covered
the,
it all. So Baboot, SCADA, Exfil. So the last question, I think, we'll end at an even 30 is in the event of successful ransomware encryption, how does Morphisec's key recovery process work, and what is the timeline for data restoration?
yeah, great question. So from a data recovery perspective, keep in mind, because of where we sit, it gives us a unique ability of intercepting a lot of things. That includes the key. So in the event that an encryption does occur, again, we should be mitigating and preventing a large majority of that encryption. We might have maybe 3 or 4 that do get encrypted, but working alongside with our team, we can actually provide those keys to help recover those keys or that data from being or recover the data that was encrypted, I should say. And one of the other things we'll also do is actually help recover any of the critical files that's used in an incident response perspective.
All right. We've answered them all. I appreciate everyone coming today, and I'm very thankful to you, Darren, and all your expertise. I'm also thankful to the demo gods. They were blessed with us today. They were graceful. So you never know when you're doing a live session like this, how it's going to go. 99 times out of 100 it goes well, but there's always a gremlin or two that sneaks in. So appreciate everyone. This has been recorded and will be shared out. Certainly go to morphisec.com to learn more, and appreciate your time.